Now, I'm going to teach you this time the historical development of the three theories. What those are? What those three theories? First of all, premillennialism. Okay? Millennialism is what? Mille means 1,000. And then annual. And annual. It's a year. It all comes from Latin word. Okay? So the millennialism, millennium means 1,000. Okay? Here, during the Paul's ministry, God spoke to Paul the pre-millennium eschatology. So Paul was pre-millennialist. Not only Paul, all his disciples and 12 disciples of Jesus also were pre-millennialist. And Paul and 12 disciples produced many their disciples, such as Timothy, Barnabas, Titus, and you just name those, all the names. Tychicus and Priscilla and Aquila, Luke, all those through their second generations. Many these listed peoples committed their life for the gospel. In the city of Rome, there's one gentleman named Clement here. We don't know when he was born, but we know when he was died because of Jesus. Clement, it's a bishop of Rome here. And Ignatius, AD 35 to 117 here. He was a bishop of the Antioch church. They all martyred. And the Smyrna church, Smyrna, Polycarp, AD 70 to 155. They all died for Jesus. And Justin Martyr, he was a Hippo, that's an African city, Northern Africa, Hippo bishop in AD 100 to 166. Okay? Now here, Leon is Frank. Leon bishop, Irenaeus. These people are very famous, okay, in Christian history. So that's why I gave you their names and their years here. Irenaeus and Tertullian. He was a bishop of a Carthage. Carthage, you know, today is Libya, the Libya city, one city in Libya. Do you remember I gave you the Carthage, Council of Carthage? What was it? 397. What was it? They formed the New Testament. Do you remember? Yeah, that is the city, Carthage. It's a very biblically well-known city in those days. So Carthage, he was a Tertullian. He was a bishop of the Carthage. And also we've got Clement, not Clement of Rome, Clement of Alexandria. What is Alexandria? That's Egypt. It's a very famous city, Alexandria. I gave you all this map. Remember I gave you the biblical map? That's why you need a map. Very important. Without the map, we can't understand this. You see, Alexandria, the church was built by whom? Mark, Saint Mark. So it's a Clement of Alexandria was a descendant of Mark, spiritual descendant of Mark, 152 to 215. And this Alexandrian church later became what? Egyptian Coptic church, even today. Okay? These people built very strong church. And Clement's disciple was Origen. Okay, this Clement of Alexandria, disciple was Origen. It's a very famous man. 180 to 254. It was an Alexandrian bishop. And also, their very famous descendants, not direct descent, but it's a different generation here, but this Athanasius. Athanasius, say after me, Athanasius. This man is a very famous man. He is a kind of key leader in the Egyptian Coptic church. This man, Athanasius. This Athanasius time, remember Arius? Who is Arius? Arianism founder. Arius. Arius is 270 to 330. Arius was one of the pastors in the Alexandria. Okay? The time was about the same as here, Athanasius time. They lived together. And Athanasius was the head of the Egyptian Coptic church. Under him, many pastors. One of them was Arius. This man invented heretic doctrine called Arianism, meaning they only believe Father God and Jesus is not the God. Jesus is just human being. That Arianism, you know that. Athanasius was the leader who fought against Arianism. And his influence was all over Middle East, because Arianism was influenced all over Middle East and Southern Europe. So Athanasius' name was well popular in those whole region, Northern Africa, in the Middle East, and Southern Europe. He was a top leader, fought against Arianism. Therefore, Egyptians, even today, are very proud of Athanasius. They say, we are the spiritual descendant of Athanasius. So don't forget the name. And also, Eusebius is a historian. He lived in Caesarea. You know Caesarea is where? Caesarea. Israel. Yeah, over the ocean court, okay? The Caesarea. This man Eusebius was well known. See, during this 3rd century, he was a very well known historian. And also, their descendants here in Italy, Milan, Ambrose. This man Ambrose is very, very well known man. Ambrose, okay? In Italian. Later on, they become a Roman Catholic. And the Jerome is a very, very famous man too. He lived in Bethlehem. Jerome, 340 to 420 here, he was a scholar. He translated Old Testament. Old Testament is written in what language? Hebrew language, Israel language. He translated Old Testament into Latin language. Latin language. It's a very historic moment. The first time in church history. Okay? You see, BC 200 time, the, Septuagint. Have you heard that? Yes. Septuagint. It's 70 scholars about BC 200 time over here. About 70 Jewish scholars gathered together in Alexandria, translated Old Testament, which is the Hebrew language, right, into Greek language. Why? Because those Israelis, okay, many Israelis lived in overseas, diasporas, could not read Hebrew language, their descendants. So they said, we have problem. Our descendants cannot read Old Testament, especially those living in where? Overseas. So Jewish scholars gathered together. We have to translate our Old Testament into Greek language because those diasporas only understand Greek language. So now Old Testament to Greek language called Septuagint, okay, around BC 200. Or 70 scholars translation book. 70 scholars translation. Or Septuagint. Don't forget this. Now, here, many scholars need to understand in Latin language. So this man, Jerome, about 500 years after, okay, after the Greek translation of Old Testament, they say we need Latin translation. Latin means Old Italian language. So we need Italian language translation in a way because the Roman power was great at the time. In Roman, Italian said, why we don't have our language Bible? Why Greek? Now, Old Testament now translated in Greek, and all New Testaments are written in Greek. Why not our language? So now Jerome translated Old Testament into a Latin. So we theologians call that translation called Vulgate. Vulgate. Now you are hearing Septuagint and Vulgate. Okay? It's a Vulgate. Say after me, Septuagint. How many people translated? 70. Okay, translated from what language to what? Hebrew to Greek. How many years ago? BC around 200. Where? What city? Alexandria. Okay. Now here, about 500 years later, Jerome. Jerome, it's a very famous name. That's why some people name Jerome. Okay. Jerome translated Old Testament Hebrew to Latin. What you call? Vulgate. Now, here, all these people here, okay, took the pre-millennial position. All these people, they took pre-millennial position. They were pre-millennialist. Now, continue writing. During these days here, we studied before, but write down, during these days, about 300 and 400, around this time, there were 5 major churches in these areas. Number 1 is Alexandrian Church in Egypt. This is number one, Alexandrian church in Egypt here. Planted by whom? You write down Mark, Saint Mark planted it. And Jerusalem church is the second, planted by 12 disciples of Jesus Christ. And Antioch church, planted by Simon who carried the cross. Simon from where? Libya. Libya is right here, Libya. Simon who carried the cross, Libya, from Libya. He was a diaspora. He planted the Antioch church. And here, Constantinople church is not directly, but the Paul's disciples. Paul's disciples. This is a Greek church, Constantinople. And also Roman church, planted by disciples of Paul. So 5 churches were there in this Northern Africa, Middle East, and Southern Europe. Among those 5 churches, this here, Roman church, was the strongest church in every aspect, because these all 5 churches belong to Roman Empire. The Roman Empire started BC 63 to AD 476. Roman Empire, memorize it. So about 500 years. So you can see dates here. They were all under what? Under the Roman Empire. The territories of Roman Empire at those days, whole Northern Europe, whole Middle East, whole Europe, with an exception of Germany, minus Germany, without German, including UK. Whole Europe was under the Roman Empire. So Roman power was very strong. Even Roman church exerted strong power toward other churches. Now, here, premillennialist preaching the gospel and claiming the people that they thought the second coming of Jesus may be around AD 500. That was their belief and their hope. Because those days Christians were not popular. They've been in persecution. Okay? Especially the early part, catacomb church. You know, catacomb. Underground tomb. This is an underground tomb called catacomb. But their church was, even their residence, their houses were underground tomb, living together with the dead bodies. Because that was the hiding place for their survival. Because they could not go out and preach the gospel in public. That was early 1st and 2nd century. But 3rd and 4th century was okay, but still Christianity was not that popular. So Christians' hope is the second coming of Jesus. Christians' hope was, at the time, Lord, come. Because the Bible said in Revelation chapter 26, I will come soon. Right? So their belief was, year 500 could be the turning point. So their preaching was that Jesus is King of Kings and he will come soon. It was very unpopular message to Roman Empire because Roman Emperor was King of Kings at the time. Because he was a king, he was a head king. Under him, every country has a small kings. Right? So he was what? King of Kings. Although Constantine accepted Christianity in 313, right? It was not comfortable inviting whole doctrine of Christianity, especially in the area of the title of Jesus, King of Kings. So Roman Empire was not happy, and his followers were not happy with that message. They summoned means they called the scholars to find out how could resolve this problem. Means what? Meaning resolving? Yes. Okay. How we settle this problem. How can we find a better solution to this problem? And Augustine, at the time, he was a top scholar for Roman Church. Later he became either top theologian for Roman Catholic theology. Even he created Mariology, Maria worship. You know the background, I told you before. Now here again, he said, Emperor, real Christian teaching is not that, because Jesus already came to this world in AD what? AD? And he came and he left in AD 30. Okay, now, Jesus was King of Kings at the time. Okay, now he's gone. Emperor, you are the King of Kings. Okay, so it's a millennium time. The King of Kings will return, he said. They premillennialist at that time was, well, pretty soon the real king come. But here in Augustine said, no. So he developed amillennialism. Okay, amillennialism. That there's not such a actual millennium, 1,000 years. It is symbolic and spiritual. Jesus already came. Now he is in control as a King of Kings. That's a symbolic meaning. You are the actual King of Kings. Therefore, their teachings are wrong. So our millennialism was officially adopted by Roman Catholic. Okay? And that theory got adopted by all here. Jerusalem Church, Antioch Church, Greek Orthodox here, Constantinople Church, and from that time on, any Christian, any leader who teach pre-millennialism were under the subject to be killed. It's a political issue. Okay? So from that time on, no one allowed to teach pre-millennialism. Isn't it interesting? Now, Gregory the First is what? First Roman bishop, Roman pope in AD 590, and Renaissance. This is the Europe's kind of cultural revolution, enlightening their eyes, that we call it Renaissance. Is a French language. 1320 to 1520. In this period, Europeans opened their eyes. Okay? Renaissance is put down here. And after that, because of all Renaissance influence, even Luther was, Martin Luther, he got enlightened, said, we have to change. Roman Catholic, we have to reform. That kind of, all these teachings got originated from this Renaissance. Okay? You see here, 1517, Reformation. Even those reformers, Calvin and Luther, they could not change the eschatological position. Yesterday I told you they were a millennialist. They could change some, but the eschatological position they could not. Because it's been there for how many years? Well, more than 1,000 years. They could not change it. And then, after Reformation, it's about, now it's the 16th century here, new revelation called enlightenment. People began to develop their brain and technology. The Portuguese and Spanish people, and later British people, invented ocean liner, able to travel, able to sail from European continent to African continent. They did not know how to cross the continent. Okay? And later Columbus, that's a Portuguese man, Spanish. They went to where? America. South America, Central America, Philippines later. Yeah. But they went to Philippines later than you guys, Magellan. Yeah. All that around this time here. Okay? So they got enlightened. In the meantime, out of the Renaissance idea, new philosophers came out. Here, Francis Bacon, Rene Descartes. Francis Bacon is a father of modern science. And Rene Descartes was a father of modern philosophy. This is a scientist and philosophy. I gave you all this time here. Then their descendants, especially their rational descendants, okay? Now in 18th century here, Immanuel Kant, all Germans, Georg Hegel, Friedrich Schleiermacher, all these guys were philosophers and they were Christians. So theologians and philosophers. They were theologians and philosophers. They built rationalism. And they built humanism. And they believe that God is here. God is in existence. We believe in God, but that God is absent. He is in the third heaven. He is in paradise. He is absent here in this, our daily world here, daily life. Okay? This is very important concept. Don't forget this. God created us in the image of God. Therefore, our image, our intellectual power is God's given power. That's a rationalism, we call that. Okay? Therefore, our thinking, our understanding, our wisdom, all are God's given present. So now God trusted us. He is not with us, but He endowed us with those ability. Okay? Before them, all these people trusted, God is with us. We have to ask God. We have to ask God. But now here, we don't have to ask God. Okay? God already has given us that wisdom because we were created in the image of God. So we call that rationalism and humanism. Theism is, it's kind of humanism and rationalism called. Theism. It's our rationalism. But theoism is a God's oriented, Godism. God comes the first. So now we've got two kinds of Christians who trusted God first, theoism, and who trusted our ration, our brain comes the first. Reasoning, our reasoning. Out of these Christian philosophers, that idea came out. They are the father of today's liberal theologians, liberal theology. Liberal theologians will not deny the existence of God, but they sometimes deny the actual working of God. They emphasize on human ability. Okay? In this kind of, we call this period called enlightenment. Enlightenment period. You know what I mean? Enlightenment. Opening your eyes. Yeah.
Have come to the light.
Yeah, enlight. Okay? This is enlightenment period. Because of this enlightenment period and science came. And everything approached by scientific method. If you cannot prove by scientific support, okay, science support or scientific methodology, then you cannot approve it. You cannot accept this is true. So in other words, truth can be determined by scientific method. So people now, okay, depend on science. If it's not scientifically sound, if it's not scientifically accepted, then this is not true. This kind of mentality will help us developing technology and science. So now here it's starting 1800 to around 1900, about 100 years this time. We call it Industrial Revolution. I put that down. Industrial Revolution. Especially in 1800, around middle of them. Now, you know, electric light, and later in telephone, in choo-choo trains, later in 20th centuries, automobiles, all this industrial revolution came about to. Before that, no light, no electricity, you know, and dark at night. But after the invention of electricity, at night was bright and everything convenience. Instead of riding a horse, choo-choo train and automobiles like that. What a change. Okay? Now, listen here, listen to me carefully from here. This kind of a social revolution, okay, industrial revolution, this idea came to theology. Okay? Now here, yesterday I told you, now all those millennialist people believe this. Wow, their view is what? Pessimistic or optimistic? Pessimistic. Okay? But now, upon the arrival of the Industrial Revolution, they say, wow, society now is getting better. Better living condition. We can build the kingdom. We can build paradise. That idea came in their society, came to their thought. Now, they said, we have to dismantle the amillennialism. Dismantle means we have to change, destroy the amillennialism. We have to develop post-millennialism. We have to change this society. Okay? So now, many so-called enlightened people, enlightened theologians, human-oriented, so-called liberal theologians, change their direction to post-millennialism. That's a newly invented ism. And some evangelicals, some of them still remained in amillennialism. So amil and post-mills are the same with an exception of what? The pessimistic to optimistic. So today, a lot of liberal denominations and scholars and pastors still believe in post-millennialism. So these post people, they said, we need a social revolution. We have to create the society to paradise, with our effort. So we have to sometimes go out on the street, demonstrate against corrupted government. We have to fight against those dictators. And if say big companies like Samsung, whatever, LG, whatever, Sony, they're collecting too much money, not sharing money with the poor people. So we have to destroy that kind of big companies. So now they work for the social justice. Most WCC. WCC? World Council of Church. Okay? Not all, but that's their principle. So most of them are post-mill people. Okay? And those Roman Catholics, I gave you those denominations yesterday. Now here, one more. Now we've got post-mill and amill. And what happened to the premier? Now, this is my last conclusion here. Around this time, around 1800 to 1900, around this, starting around 1800, amongst those missionary groups, missionaries from America, UK, Canada, Australia, they said pre-millennialism was the early forefathers' doctrine, and the Bible says so. Because they opened their eyes and discovered that amill and post-mills are not biblical. Okay? Now we have to wait for the second coming. Before second coming, it will be Bible said it is a pessimistic. And Bible said actual 1,000 years not a symbolic. And all these forefathers took that position, but because of the Augustine, it's been decolored. It's changed. Now let's go back. Let's restore that pre-mill. So it was William Carey, who is the modern father in modern mission, went to India, Sarampu, and beginning with all missionaries, okay, 1800 19th century, and then 1900 is what? 20th century. All these people, missionaries and God's loving people, okay, who wants to finalize the harvest until His coming, they took that pre-mill position. Even Billy Graham and all those top leaders took this position. So now even today, mission-oriented, okay, evangelical, even fundamental, end-time harvest wishers, people who are anxious to the second coming of Jesus. Now it's taking the pre-mill position. And they strongly believe that pre-mill is the biblical.